Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia. I am your host, and I am here with my co-host, Glenn Sheridan, just like the intro said. And today we have another guest with us who inspires us to really consider how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. And so before we say hello to our guest, let me tell you a little bit about who she is. She is an award-winning international keynote speaker, an expert on branding and design, and is the author of this amazing book on branding, which I can't believe I don't have here to show you, but maybe she does, called Brand Chemistry. Ta-da! And she is the founder and creative director of Lab Creative. And her mission is to help ambitious entrepreneurs create strong, memorable brands that consistently attract their ideal clients. Now, in addition to all of that amazing, super professional stuff, this is someone who is a dear friend of mine, someone who I have known for, I guess, about 16 years, because I kind of measure it with how old Milana, our daughter, is, because I think she was about 6 months old when we first met. And so our guest is also a friend. She is a mother. She is a wife. She is an amazing, amazing, talented being. She is so inspirational to me personally because I just love watching her business grow. I love watching her grow as a person. I love hearing about everything that's going on with her kids. And recently she became mom to not just the boys that she's been mom to, but a hedgehog, I think.
Yes.
and today she comes to us from Toronto. So there is so much more to talk about. There is so much more to learn and so much more to hear about. So as we get started, as we start off asking, everyone who comes onto our podcast, Laura Beauparlant, who do you think you are?
Thank you for that amazing introduction. It's an honor to be here with both of you. So who do I think I am? I'm many things. I'm a motivator. I'm a guide. I'm a creator. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a thriver.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many words I can use to describe myself when I think about who do I think I am. I'm a great friend. Those I think are the words that immediately come to my mind when I think of who I am.
Now, there are a few other things that come to mind for me when I think of you. Style is one of them. Style in like every single aspect of your life. And even today, when you popped onto the screen, out of the Zoom waiting room, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new background that I haven't even seen yet. And you just told us about why we're seeing what we're seeing. But what is it that we're seeing? It looks like there might be some like sketches or something behind you. And then there's a guitar that looks like it is signed by someone.
It is.
Do tell.
So the prints are the four seasons as trees, but the trees are made up of little tiny people. So if you could zoom in, you would see that every leaf, every part of the tree is actually little people, and their positioning depends on the season. So in winter, they're more kind of curled up and underground, and in the summer, they're like sort of open arms. So it's very, very cool. And that was something my husband got on a trip to Ireland many years ago before we even met. And so you can't see there's the fourth on the side. And the guitar is autographed by Chantal Kreviazuk.
Wow.
If any of you know who she is, you're fellow Canadians, so you probably know who she is. I have loved her music since I heard her open for Amanda Marshall at the Molson Amphitheater in like the 90s.
Yeah.
It was her and a grand piano. And I was just like, who is that? I was up in the grass, so I couldn't even see. It was like this tiny little person on the stage. and I just fell in love with her music, and I've been following ever since. I've seen her many times play, and I got this at a charity auction. It was like a bidding, so bidding more. So it's autographed to me. It's signed by her, and yeah. So I used to play guitar. I don't know if you know that about me. I used to play the electric guitar, and so the acoustics takes a little bit of getting used to. So I've been playing a little bit ukulele lately, but I'm like, one day this is going to be, I'll have more time to play it. But right now it just hangs on my wall and reminds me that someday I will play it.
Wow. You know, I still, it's the electric guitar thing. That's one of the things that is not, it's like way back in the recesses of my mind when I think of you. And so whenever it comes up, you know, every few years or something, I'm like, I really have a hard time envisioning you playing electric guitar.
Oh yeah. And I could play like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, like you name it. Led Zeppelin was one of my favorites. Like I hung out with long-haired dudes and we all just jammed together in basements. Like, okay. But I know most people are like, really?
When was this? Was this like high school? Was this
high school?
Okay.
High school. Yeah.
Could we see pictures at some point?
Yes, I have a photo somewhere. I'll find it of me at a guitar recital where I played Michelle by the Beatles on my electric guitar. I still remember my teacher's name. It was hilarious. But yes, I have a photo of that somewhere. I had big hair. I had like the big hair.
Was there like lots of hairspray? Was there any color in the hair, or was it just like
no, it was just big and lots of hairspray. The color was probably had like green mascara or eyeshadow or something. Yeah.
Right.
The 90s were an interesting decade.
The ukulele, is there something like, can you play like Enter Sandman or something on the ukulele?
Oh, well, now you've challenged me for that. No, I was doing some YouTube learning over the summer. And so I was learning, oh my gosh, now I can't, of course I've put on the spot and I can't think of the names of the songs. There was a Beatles song that I was playing, and then there was a more current one, and the name escapes me. Just stuff with some simple strumming. Yeah. The kids both had ukuleles, they weren't playing. So I'm like, how hard could it be?
Yeah. So does that mean you have more than one ukulele in the house then?
Yeah.
Wow. Are they both the same size? Because I just recently learned there are like different sizes of ukuleles.
They're the same size. They're not like top quality, but for a beginner, they're pretty good.
And I haven't played myself, but I understand that it's actually quite easy to learn how to play a ukulele.
It's much easier than a guitar.
Yeah.
Like it's just simpler and it's smaller. So I just found it was just easy to like sit on the sofa and watch a YouTube video and like follow along and play and jam. So.
Yeah, Milana was super gung-ho about the ukulele. Was it, Honey Munch, was it here or was it still in Toronto? I can't remember, but it was in Toronto. I remember because she wanted me to buy a tuner so that she could tune her ukulele. And I said, can't you just go online and, or like do it with the piano that we have that is in tune? No, I need this special tuner. And it was something like, I don't know, $60 or something. And I'm like, Milana, this is an investment. Are you seriously, like, are you really committed to playing the ukulele? Yes. How many times do you think that tuner was used? And how long do you think the ukulele playing lasted?
I know. It's good to know all kids are the same.
To her credit, though, I mean, she is very, very devoted to her performing, to the singing, and to the acting more and more and more. And she recently, just proud mom moment here. She recently, just like yesterday, it was announced that the performance that they're doing at school for end of the year, the senior musical, she got the main character, the main part in it.
Yay! That's exciting.
Very, very exciting, because they had to, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they had to prepare themselves for the option of maybe 4 different roles to play. And so they had different songs. They had to, I think they only had to sing. I don't think they actually had to do any acting scenes, but they had to do different numbers in order for the teachers to, figure out who was going to play what. And then not only that, but who the understudies were going to be, just in case. And so it's exciting. And it's going to be neat for us because because, thanks to COVID, none of it's going to happen in person. And so it's actually going to be more like a movie musical than it is going to be a live performance. So that's going to be kind of
Cool.
neat, because she said they're going to have different cameras and different angles going on. And I don't know, maybe there'll be more than one take happening, and they're doing it to a live orchestra, which is a first
Ooh.
for her. So that'll be really, really neat.
That's exciting. New
Yeah.
experiences, right? Life is full of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether you're, one or, 85, like it's just new experiences all the time.
Yeah. And so let's see, what direction shall we go in? Well, you know what, I'm going to do this and go to something that I think would be interesting for folks to hear about. And it's an anniversary that you just celebrated recently, 25 years. And you know what, before I kind of like go and talk about, slightly wrong things or get it wrong or whatever, why don't you just tell us about what that 25-year anniversary was for? And this really, for me anyway, and I know a lot of people, is one of the reasons that you are so incredibly inspiring. So if you could tell us a bit about what that 25th anniversary was all about, and how that has really sort of inspired you to live the way you do and to show up in life the way that you do, because it's pretty big.
Thank you. It's nice to know that I'm inspiring people, and it makes a difference. So on November 12th, it was 25 years from a car accident where I was in a head-on collision with a drunk driver and almost died. So I kind of see, like, I wrote a blog post about it. I'm not sure if you read it, saying, it's my 25th birthday, because I feel like that was, while I lived for 18 years before that accident, I really started living after it. Maybe not immediately, because I had a long road to recovery. I spent about 2 years in and out of hospital, lots of surgeries, lost my independence, lost my ability to go to school, go to work, friends, like just life was sort of on hold. There was a lot of unknowns. It kind of reminds me of what we're all experiencing right now in many ways, right? There's so many unknowns. People are losing jobs, losing, like access to family and friends and that independence. So I kind of feel in some ways like I've been here before. And that was a real catalyst for me. Everything that's happened in the last 25 years, while I don't think we're like, determined by that event, I've made it into something pretty spectacular, right? It was a terrible thing that happened. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And yet I wish everybody could get the learnings from an experience like that, right? And not when they're 65 and thinking I should have done more with my life, right? But like, when they're younger and really thinking, who do I want to be, right? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And design their life, right? We are in control of it, right? Circumstances might happen around us, but it's how we respond to those things that happen and what we do with that information and how we can turn it around. So while that event was a terrible event in my life, it led me to my husband. I would not have met him, or maybe I would have, right? If you've ever seen the movie Sliding Doors, maybe we would have met in a different way, in a different place. But, that's huge to me. Would I have lived abroad for 3 years in my 20s? Would I have gotten to know my dad's native language and all my relatives in Denmark? Would I have traveled as extensively? Would I have had as many experiences? Would I have started my own business? I wouldn't have described myself as a courageous person before. I was a bit of a quiet rebel, but I was still like a bit of a worrier and scared of new things. And this allowed me to embrace that and go, what have I got to lose? In a way, not in the sense of like, I'm taking big risks in my life. I'm not like skiing double black diamonds and Whistler or something and thinking, I got this, right? I take smart risks, but I take a lot of risks in my life and my business. And, everything I've done in my business is really a lot of those learnings. And then, you knew me when I had a previous business, and 5 years ago on the 20th anniversary, I put out a Facebook post looking for a man who held my hand and kept me conscious when I was trapped in my car 20 years earlier, who I'd tried many times to find, to no avail over the years. And I thought, social media, I feel like I've seen this happen a few times. And I put out a post on a Thursday around 11 a.m. and it went viral. It was shared over 30,000 times. My next day, I was on global news and all kinds of newspapers and magazines, and I was doing interviews. And by the following evening, I got a message from this man's former girlfriend telling me that she had told him that I was looking for him, and I met him for a coffee at a Starbucks in Mississauga, 20 minutes from my house, probably about a week later. And that was, again, it was sort of that's another big pivotal time in my life, because I met him and I was already feeling a little bit kind of falling out of love with my business, not really sure what I was doing, and was just kind of itching for something different. And that event brought back so much to light for me and made me go, I am not living up to my fullest potential. Mm-hmm. I have so much more to give, and I am not doing that through the work that I'm doing. And the actual 20th anniversary, I was sitting at my desk doing something that to me was meaningless. And I realized 20 years ago, I almost died at this very moment. And I'm sitting in my office fighting with my printer to do something that is meaningless. Mm-hmm. This is it. I'm done. And that was literally the last time I did that. And I was like, that was another line in the sand. I didn't know where I was going or what I was really doing. But I started on this journey of discovery basically 5 years ago right now. And by the following, so 2016 in February, I was sort of reimagining and creating Lab Creative and creating my program Brand Camp. And all of that started because of that catalyst 5 years ago to really go, wait a minute. This event in my life has brought so much meaning to me. And when I share it, it means so much to other people. There's got to be more to what I'm doing and how I can help people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that sort of brings us today.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just, there were periods in the last, while you were just speaking now, where I felt a little emotional, just, being a friend of yours and knowing you on a personal level, having gone through some stuff with you together, when I was going through some pretty volatile times when I had my business, which I loved, but which was super, super hard. LPK's Culinary Groove, the pastry shop that I had in Toronto. And just, you talking about the lines in the sand or delineating moments in our lives where we have those ahas, or where we sort of are hit with, there's more than this, or am I showing up in the best way possible? Am I doing the most with my life? And I would think that at some point everybody has, at least 1, 2, 3, maybe lots of them, but it's at that point, like you said, it's, what do you decide to do? How do you decide to respond to that sort of aha? Is it okay, and that's it, and you just completely move forward, taking a leap of faith and not even knowing exactly what it is that you are supposed to do, or how you're supposed to show up, or how you're supposed to live or offer yourself up to the world? Or do you go, that's really interesting, but it's also super scary, and this is what I know, so I'm just going to go back to what I'm doing? And I think that all too often, and I know I've done it myself, all too often, it's easier to just stick with what is comfortable because it's familiar. And if you go beyond, just try and eke your way out, or claw your way out, or just bulldoze your way out of that comfort zone, not knowing what is on the other side, especially when I mean, this class that I'm in, this advanced consciousness studies class, we're talking about the domain of infinite potentiality, because we're studying quantum theory and quantum physics. Infinite, just like the word, if you really give pause and just think about infinite possibilities, infinite potentialities, I mean, to go out into that and to just trust that there is that in you. There is something that you are meant to do in only the way that you can right here, right now. And because it's infinite, kind of that sliding doors thing of right now it's this, but right now it's this. And to open yourself up to those infinite, possibilities, and have faith that, what is yours to do is already making its way forward, and just go into that flow. That can be pretty daunting at times. However, when that call is solid, and when you are just so, there's nothing to do but answer that call, but step into that infinitude, but step into that, what's next, what is mine to do. That can also be super exciting and thrilling. And then you just allow yourself to, I have goosebumps right now as I'm thinking about it, to go on that ride. And where I'm going with this is, I think one of the skills, the talents, the sort of like the innate talents that you have in the work that you do, which is something that I've experienced a couple of times, is when you do your brand camps. And these intensive brand camps, I mean, I feel kind of fortunate because I attended the very first one in person, way back in 2016. And that was, I think, about a month before we moved from Toronto and made our way across country, to Vancouver Island here. And it was such a neat event, for the first one. It was in person. It was at the Aga Khan Museum, in this beautiful room, this beautiful setting, and, super creative people, and just, being in that environment, being in that energy, being with those people, being there with you as the facilitator and the guide to like extract all of this creativity from us, and allow us the opportunity to kind of, hone it into this this content and this distilled, brand essence that we could then use to move forward with in our businesses, was amazing. And then fast forward to 4 years later, when I just did the one that you had in October, which is now online. And there were 3 other amazing women in there. And the energy of that group, and the creativity, and your ability to gently coax and nudge, and again, extract all of that juicy goodness and awesomeness from each of us. And then the support that came from everyone, as we all ended up inspiring each other. Such an extraordinary opportunity. And I was just flying high and completely buzzing as I finished off with, your event, and then hopped right into another one, for an intensive 3-day, weekend of content building and, who am I inside, and bring it out to the world kind of thing. So it's been an incredible experience to be, sort of under your guidance, and to see the arc of, what that first brand camp experience was to what it is now. And I mean, I can only speak for the experience that I had in my little collective, but you do this on a pretty regular basis. So how tell people more about brand camp, what it is, and then how often do you do it? Like, is there a regular, you roll it out every few months, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on my 2021 schedule for that with my team. We have a planning session in about a week and a half, I think. So the goal is to run it sort of 8 to 10 times per year in the small group format, that 4 people, which I found is magical. I think a lot of people are like, can't you get more in there? And, but it's like, that's how it works best. So I'm also looking at how can I offer it or other things in different ways. But it's so interesting because the feedback I've been getting for the last few months. And so, I had been positioning this as a course, right? And that's sort of the language lots of people use with online stuff, and I looked even through my landing page, and it was like, it's a course, it's like course language. But everybody who's been doing it, and, you tell me if you agree, Lesia, they're like, this isn't a course. It's like, it's like information and training and coaching and, the doing the work, and like, it's sort of all of these things. So somebody described it to me as an immersive branding experience.
And I'm like, that totally came to mind. That's exactly it. Yep.
So I changed it. Now that's what it says at the very top of the page about Brand Camp. This is an immersive branding experience for ambitious entrepreneurs, because it's not, we do the work together on the calls. I am your guide. I am getting you to dig deeper and I'm reading things differently than what people are writing down, or I'm challenging them to add things. And then everyone's supporting each other in that small group. And it's been phenomenal to see that growth, even like you said, from that very first one to now, my own confidence level and like, yeah, I'm good at this. Like I'm really, I know that doesn't sound like a very Canadian thing to say, but I am good at this.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, how can I amplify that? Right? Like I'm going into 2021, like, let's blow this up, right? And how does that look? How can I offer what I do? Because people have finished Brand Camp and they're like, but I want to keep working with you. I want more support. I need this or that. So it's like, and I had an interesting experience this past week where I had 3 no's to proposals that I thought were like for sure happening. And I was like really bummed, like feeling super dejected. I was like, I just had to go for a walk. I did yoga. I had to process it. And with the support of some peers, was like, these no's are going to lead me to evaluate ways that I'm running my business, how much energy I'm expending into the world. But without those no's, I never would have done that. And it's really like, I had a team meeting yesterday. We're like making some changes. We're going to streamline some things so that certain areas aren't taking so much of my energy and I can refocus it in the places I'm really good at. Right. So how can I, so it's so interesting when we have these seemingly negative events, right? Whatever they are. And I could have gotten wrapped up in that. And I did for a period of time, right? We all do. We're like, man, you get like sad, angry, whatever, like you feel the feelings and that's okay. But you can't get stuck in the feelings. That's something I've learned over the last few years. Like it's okay to feel how you're feeling and not diminish that. But you can't get stuck and spiral into it. And so it's reaching out for help, reaching out for words of guidance, going for a walk, doing, talking to people, meditating, like whatever tools people have in their toolbox to help them. And then go, okay, let's reset this. Let's look at this from a different angle. Right? And just change that. So it's looking at those seemingly negative things and trying to find the opportunity or what it is showing you. And I think that's the thing, you were mentioning this, that there's sort of people who they just go after that. They go for that. They see the circumstance and they make something out of it. There's some people that get paralyzed by it. They're like, I don't know what to do. And there's some people that I think are just oblivious to it. They're not even aware. They're just like, I'm just unlucky. This stuff just happens to me. And and they don't see any correlation to anything else. So I kind of see it as sort of 3 categories. And it's like, how do you bring more awareness to the people who are don't even see the opportunities and the ones that are paralyzed by it. Right. It took me a long time to get to this place where I feel a bit more like I'm in that 3rd bucket of seeing circumstances and opportunities and taking the time to process it and then making the shift I need to make.
Oh yeah. And that processing, it is allowing yourself to feel the feels is so important, because I think, even being in the teaching that I'm in, which with being in this advanced consciousness studies class, we're now just ripping the foundation right out of it and dissecting and questioning everything, which is super fascinating and unraveling all at the same time. But if you don't feel those feelings, if you don't allow them to come and have their day, this actually, it's part of what I was going to write my next newsletter or blog post about. It reminds me of our cat, Mercury, who, when she is hungry, she will make it known. She will meow and 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 butt her head up against you and claw and whatever until she gets her food. And, you can put her outside, you can brush her, you can, hold her and love her and whatever to try to distract her. But nope, it is hunger that, is the name of the game, and you have to deal with it. And as soon as you give her the food, that's it. The meowing stops, unless she has worms, and then it continues because she's still hungry. But it just, it's kind of like feelings, if they are coming up, if you are feeling something, even, it is so uncomfortable, or you don't know, or you don't understand, you can't even like put a word to it. You got to allow yourself the opportunity, the gift of actually letting those feelings have their day. Because if you don't, and you squish them down and you try and put them over here or over here in a box, whatever, they're just going to come up again in another way at another time. And a lot of times what I find is they'll come up, when it's just sort of like in the most inappropriate, or what's the word I'm thinking of? The word is escaping me, but something will happen, and it's something small, but that big feeling that has been growing and festering that hasn't been given attention earlier is just going to blow up. And it's a completely disproportionate response to, what is actually happening, even though the feeling has really nothing to do with what's happening. There's just a trigger that happened and let this feeling out. So yeah, processing, but also, like you said, don't get stuck in them. And one of my favorite sayings, that I heard a few years ago was, you can go through hell, just don't build a condo there. Some people say don't pitch a tent there, but I like the don't build a condo there part.
Yeah, I don't do tents. So yeah, that would be more appropriate for me.
Mahoney, I know we've been talking a bit about stuff that Laura and I have talked about, easily many times, but is there anything that you'd like to chime in about?
Well, as you mentioned, emotions there Laura, do you think that your ability to notice when things like that are coming up in people that you are working with and inspiring, like dealing with someone as a person, obviously it's a multi-dimensional being you're dealing with. Everyone has got so much going on with who they are, and a lot of it is hidden, and things like that where if a person gets really, really frustrated with, what isn't working, or just they can't quite get their vision right, or whatever it is, have you noticed in yourself that ability that has, like, are you honing that ability to notice when something like that is going on? It's like, this is an emotional thing rather than just something illogical that you can help them go through steps, do this, do this, do this, and then, you'll have an experience, and you'll be that much closer to your goal, or knowing what you want. Is that something that you've noticed in yourself, where you're clearly you've had these like quantum leaps of knowing who you are? And she's laughing because that's a anyway.
He sits in on our discussion.
I got it.
Sunday, even though he's not in my class.
Yeah, I'm a hanger-on. I'm like the groupie.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
But if so, like this whole business that you're in is so it's like partly in coaching, and it's extracting from people, because they show up in your life because clearly they know something about themselves, but they can't necessarily quantify or describe like what it is.
Yeah,
So
articulate
it's part
it.
of your job to dig the stuff out of the way,
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. I'm even going through an exercise myself, because I'm realizing that as I've gotten better at this, I need to be even clearer in my own messaging. So I'm going back through everything that I'm writing and saying about what we offer, because it's so much more, right? Like I'm not selling branding and design. I'm really not. That's a tool that we use to help our clients, but it's confidence and clarity and accountability and motivation and inspiration and authenticity, and it's all these things rolled into one. And it's, so I'm working personally on just like reevaluating that, because I have to shift how I'm selling, which, it's funny how I'm like, it doesn't feel like even the right word, sharing myself, sharing my gifts and what we do. And I've done a lot of personal work in the last 2 years, I would say, probably more, but like in particular, the last 2 years, there's been some intensive like personal work, coaching, intuitive coaching, like trainings that I've done, and I've learned a lot. I've also learned that I've been sort of an intuitive empath for most of my life. It explains a lot of my insomnia as a kid. So I'm like, oh, that's why I couldn't sleep at night, because I was worried about everybody else in the world. And I've learned over the years kind of how to protect myself a bit from that energy, but it's helped me to be able to tap into people on a deeper level. I'm not like crazy intuitive, but like I can tell when somebody is not quite digging deep enough. I can see where there's some, sensitivities. And somebody described me like this once after meeting me for 10 minutes and said that I see deep into people's souls and I pull out the best of them and bring it to life in words and visuals. I was like, like if I had a mic right now, I'd be dropping it. Like, how did you get that out of a 10-minute conversation? I have no idea. But those words stuck with me because I think that is really my magic, right? I think what I do is part chemistry and part magic. It's the chemistry of the formula I've created, that process I take people through, but the magic is what I bring. And it's me helping my clients find their magic. And so to me, the work that I get to do with entrepreneurs allows me to help them create their dream life, the business that they love, that they're passionate about, make money doing it, thrive. And that's the vehicle I use, my motivation and inspiration and that ability to connect with people on a deep level and challenge them to push themselves further as well. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's
Glenn?
cool. Yeah, it's like in the last couple of years, Lassie and I have been introduced to a lot of people who are, we'll say, coaches in general. They coach, they do that thing that good teachers do in school, where they just draw out of people, the best, as you said, the best of who they are, what their talents are. And, I think in your case, because you came out of that thing of branding and the sort of presentation to the world of the person's company or just individual talents. And that's a great thing, like I can open a book on design or something and just like be there for a long time looking at, wow, these are really cool. But they're objects, right? But they are infused with some kind of, as you say, like magic. It's in there. When you're dealing with a person who is on a journey and they know that, you're not dealing with a person who is, they just want to get to the top of the mountain or whatever, and then they think everything is going to be wonderful. It's like you're dealing with a person, the kind of person in entrepreneurial spirit is, they want to continue to like upgrade and be better at and be more open to, oh, I didn't know that could be part of this service that I provide, or this these opportunities I'm giving people. And it could be something as simple as making widgets, and they're really cool at it, and it's a new thing, and they just don't know how to like sell their widgets. But I think what you're doing, and people in your sort of inspirational, motivational mode, you kind of just like do that allowing thing. That's what it is. But you have to know when to cut in and go, well, no, you're going down the wrong road there, and just gently say, oh, okay, here we go. There's where we wanted to go, So that's what I appreciate about what you do.
Yeah, it's really about asking the questions, cultivating the information, right? And then distilling it. You use the word distill, Lesia, and that's the last phase of my process, right? Like that's where we create the brand essence. So all the work I do in brand camp with my clients, it's a build until we get to that that last piece, which is where we distill your essence into, you know, a few words, right? And you really get that clarity, and you're like, oh, this is who I am. This is the heart and soul of what I'm putting out there. Sometimes I find it's also giving people permission. And I know that sounds funny. I feel like, you know, as adults, we're like, I don't need permission to do things, but people still want permission that like what they're doing is okay, or like this is the right idea, especially because I work with so many solo entrepreneurs. Everybody's working in their own little bubble, especially right now. And, you know, sometimes they just need that reassurance that like, yeah, you can totally do this. And they're like, oh, really? You think I can? Like, it's happened to me. You know, years ago, I was like, when I was creating, or in that, I think it was this leadership retreat. I think this is where this happened in February of 2016, right when I was kind of on the cusp of, I basically came home and created Lab Creative and Brand Camp from that event. And I just remember saying to somebody, well, branding is what other people do. I'm a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else does the branding. And then I was challenged on that. They're like, well, do you do this and this and this and this? And they were like, asking me all these questions, like, well, yeah, but I didn't have a formula. I didn't have it formalized. I was just sort of, it was just extracting information in a more ad hoc kind of basis. So I was challenged, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I guess I do that. And now I'm like, I'm a branding expert. Let's like wear that title proudly. I'm sort of like 5 years ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. I'm not that. So I stepped into it, right? But we all need a little bit of that permission. Like, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe I am. Maybe I could do that. Interesting. And then in May of this year, I was on a live stream on a YouTube channel with like 800,000 subscribers, something, tons of like thousands of people are watching. And the host, we got talking about the term brand strategist. And I was like, oh, well, I don't refer to myself as that. I don't, I was sort of like, yeah, I've never used that term. I'm not a strategist. I don't use, and then he was like, really? And it was sort of, all of a sudden I had thousands of people listening to me. I was like, I guess I am, it was just hilarious. And now I'm like, I do design and strategy as part of one of my packages. Like we have strategy sessions. I'm like, I sure do brand strategy. Like, it's just funny how we get that fixation in our mind about like, this is the title because, I'm like, well, I don't have a coaching certification. Can I call myself a coach? People are like, Laura, you're a bloody coach. Like, get over yourself. I'm like, okay, I feel like I should have some formal education for that. But like, should I also for being a brand strategist? I don't know. I wrote a book about it. So I guess that makes me an expert. My husband, Philippe always says titles are free, unless maybe like MD or like there's certain titles that are not free, but like VP, like what do you call yourself? Are you the president of your company? Are you the, I'm the founder and creative director. I'm the what do you call yourself? If you're a coach, so it's just an interesting thing around titles and how we refer to ourselves.
Wow.
I wrote a whole blog post about that because there's a few titles I'm not a fan of. So I was like, I wrote an opinion piece on like, what do we call ourselves?
Are any of those fit for air right now? The ones that you don't?
Well, I despise the term mompreneur.
Oh, I remember reading that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really like, am I going to piss off a lot of people? I'm in some like mompreneur groups. And what was funny is some of those moms shared it in those Facebook groups and it was like well received.
Yeah.
And one of them actually changed. She stopped calling it mompreneurs. It was like mom entrepreneurs, or like, it's just, there was a slight tweak. And I was like, oh, I inspired some change there, because I said, dads don't call themselves dadpreneurs.
Yes.
I became an entrepreneur before I became a mother. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a mother. Those two things, I can be both of those things without them having to be mashed together. And that doesn't define me, and it diminishes it. Like, I actually pass judgment as a mom and an entrepreneur on mompreneurs, because I've seen that it's like you started a baby business after having a baby, and it's just like there's almost like I've seen a mentality, and it's like when you call yourself that, you're putting yourself into a specific box of like, I'm going to have a tiny business while my kids are little. And it's whether or not that's actually what you're creating, that is often a perception that it's not really a serious thing. And I've totally been guilty of making that judgment myself. Full disclosure, right? So language is important. What we call ourselves is important.
Yeah.
I have 2 pages of notes, just so you know.
I was like, she's writing something down.
Well, I write stuff down so that I remember and keep it more fresh in my mind, because when I go to edit this later, if there are things that I want to extract from it, I don't need to watch the whole thing over again, because a lot of most times it seems like our conversations end up going, an hour and 15, maybe even an hour and a half, and to sit there and watch it all over again.
What was that moment when I said, when my guest said X, Y, and Z?
So so many things here. Honestly, a little while ago, while you and Glenn were talking, I'm listening to Laura talk, and I'm thinking, the work you do is so similar to the work that I do. I mean, you're in a different field, but, and then I started thinking, it's very similar for a lot of people who are there to hold someone's hand, who are there to guide, who are there to facilitate, who are there to coach. I don't use the word coach. That's, I mean, part of it is I'm not licensed as a coach. I'm licensed as a religious science practitioner. So I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner, and coaching is not part of what we end up learning. There's a slight difference in what we do. And, anyway, so that's not a label that I attach to myself. However, that coaxing and extraction and gentle, nudging and inspiring to get someone to open up to what is already there, I feel like that's what a lot of people do, and people who are effective at what they do and affect transformation in the people that they work with. That's really what it's about, because I believe, the teaching that I subscribe to or otherwise, especially now studying quantum theory, everything is energy. Everything is energy. And so if everything is energy, everyone and everyone is that, then everyone and everyone is interconnected as this energy. But we're each expressing as this energy in our own unique way. And if you distill it down, that each one of us has unique gifts and is a gift, in and of itself, that we are here to express as. And that expression, because we are having this human experience, goes over time, a lifetime, no matter how short or how long. And that, along the way, that gift can manifest or show up or express in different ways, depending on how much living, we've done up until then. So I just, it really hit me as I was sitting there listening to you that, wow, there's so much similarity in the work that we do, even though, the product around the work that we do is different. And then the idea of labels and language, to me, it's such a broad topic, because as much as I love language and I love writing and I love reading things that are written well, where there is a respect for language and a really amazing usage of language. And I don't read nearly as much as Glenn does. Glenn is Mr. Head in a book or an audiobook or a podcast or a lecture or something almost all the time, in his waking day. But the idea of labels and titles, to me, that kind of gets my back up a bit, because that then takes me to the little boxes that, you were just talking about. And once we start putting ourselves in boxes and we start identifying as those boxes, or that there is a limit, or that there is a boundary, or that there is a border, then we're, squashing or stopping that flow of energy, that flow of infinitude, the infinite possibilities that are all the time. Like if you think in terms of quantum worldview, the domain of infinite potentiality is all now. There's no time, there's no space. It's all available and happening right now, which, I mean, you know, if I sit with it, it's like,
yeah,
you know,
big concept.
So it is, but there's that, you know, so why would you limit yourself? You know, why would you
But we do it all the time. I
Mhm.
think we put ourselves in boxes, and I'll share a story because I recently had a bit of a revelation for myself. So almost 5 years ago, when I was started Lab Creative, I was at this leadership retreat in San Diego. And at that time I set like a revenue goal that I wanted to make a month in my business. Not really thought much about it after, like, but that was sort of a number in my head. And I've been hitting that relatively consistently for the last few years. But I'm here, right? There hasn't been growth. I mean, this year is a bit of an anomaly. But I'm like still going to be around the same. And somebody made me realize that that's the number I'm set at. And that's why I'm stuck there. Because I have limited, right? Talk about infinite potentiality. Like, I had put a limit on what I could make in my business every month, because that was a number I set almost 5 years ago. And now I've not been really able to break through that. And I was like, oh, so now I have to change that. That like financial barometer that I had set is stuck there. That was, this woman mentioned, she goes, yeah, it's a barometer. Like, you are set at this level, and now we need to open that up that it's not there anymore.
That totally reminds me of a book I read a few years back called, I think it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it's all about that, about how at some point when we are young, I can't remember where it is, you know, 6, 7 years old, something like that, we end up setting these barometers for ourselves. You can only be this happy, make this amount of money, be this successful. And whenever you hit that ceiling, you end up doing something, you know, attract an opportunity, create an experience to sabotage going above that, so you can get back down to being just below or hitting that ceiling, but no more. And I remember when I read that book, I thought, oh my God, this explains so much. This is so amazing. Great. Now, how do I move past that ceiling? But then I kind of, you know, didn't give it much thought. All I ended up finding was examples of that actually happening in my life. Like, working out with a trainer that I was working with at the time, and having these goals that revolved around quality of life more than, you know, the way I wanted my body to look or feel or whatever. But I would reach a certain goal, and then I would get bronchitis and I wouldn't be able to work out for like 2 or 3 weeks or something. Money was starting to flow in through my business. It was amazing. I'd made, you know, it was actually finally financially sustainable. Then I was in a car accident and I couldn't work because I had a concussion for a week and a half, and, you know, sales, like there were no sales, right? Just stuff like that. Or things were going super, super well, you know, amazing. Glenn and I were having an amazing time. And then an opportunity would come, and like a fight would happen, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, so it was so interesting that there was this idea of this, you know, barometer being there. And then I, you know, started my spiritual practitioner work and studies. And that's really how, you know, this idea of, you know, it's kind of like the Matrix, like there's no barometer, you know, like it's just a construct of mind. It's an idea. That's all it is, you know, so there isn't even, you know, a box or anything. It's just an idea. So let that idea go and create a new idea, think a new idea, and move beyond that. Because until you do, and until you really believe it, you know, with every fiber of your being, and that's where that quantum leap that, you know, Glenn mentioned earlier happens, then you actually surpass, you know, any barometer, you know, any ceiling, any box, any, you know, border or obstacle of a challenge, whatever, of any kind. And you can actually, you know, just expand, because To me, that's what it's all about, is like just expanding and allowing for that expansion to continue. And sometimes it's huge. And it's like, for me in the summertime, it just felt like my creativity was just through the roof and I couldn't stop it. It was a geyser, and it was just like, I couldn't keep up with it almost. And now it's very different. And I just feel like I'm in more of a just being grounded and being grounded and just really giving attention to what is already at hand, rather than opening myself up to, what wants to come up. It's like, no, that's okay. And it's taken me a few weeks to get okay with that. It's like, but there was so much happening. There were all these ideas coming forth, and, for classes and this and that and whatever, and connection and networking. Where did it all go? Well, it didn't go anywhere. This is just part of, a cycle. And this is where I am, and, giving myself time and permission to process that, this is what's happening right now. That's
I think we often, we might have these visions of like, I want to do this, or I have this thing I want to do in my business. But you're scared of what it means when you get there, right? Like, and I don't know that people realize, think about that. And I remember in the recovery from my car accident, I started fearing getting better, because every time I started to make progress, I always felt like I take, 4 steps, 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. Mm-hmm. So there was always like, you'd build, like you talked about that workout, right? Like I'd build momentum and then something would happen and it would set me back. And so then I was just like, I would be anxious around getting better, because to me that meant I was going to have a backslide.
Yeah.
And so if we relate that to business or life, when you get into that circle of like, it's like a cycle, but sometimes it's not a good cycle. You get into this mindset around like, I'm going to do this, but then in your mind, you're like, am I ready for that? Do I want this? What's going to happen when I get there? Are people still going to want to be my friend if I have this success? There's a lot of stuff that drives that. We still, as much as people don't think they do, they really fear or worry about the judgment of others and how it will affect their life, in the future.
Yep. And that's, to me, that's ego, like little ego, trying to just keep us safe and keep us protected, because, we know what's going on here. And even though it may not feel super great all the time, we know this, so let's just stay here, because you're risking, you talked about risks earlier. You're risking this, you have this, what this is, and you are risking this if you go beyond. And it's the Marianne Williamson quote, which the exact thing doesn't come to mind right now, but where she talks about, it's not the darkness that we're afraid of, it's the light. It's how awesome we can be. It's how amazing and fantastic.
Somebody sent me that quote when I posted something. That's so hilarious. I'm going to see if I can find it, because I literally had it. I think I have it on my desktop, because it was so amazing.
Yeah.
Can I find it quickly? I don't know, but it was just so fascinating to me to read that, like because we are, and that came to my realization, or I realized that it was probably about 2 years ago when I was working with somebody, and she said, "Are you dimming your own light?" And I burst into tears, because it hit me so deeply to my core. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I've been doing. Right? Because I felt like, and this might resonate with you and other people, that by shining as brightly as I can, that I would dim other people, like I would cast a shadow on others by being the brightest star, right? Like I would, like, maybe that was ego, or me not wanting to make others. I always felt like, well, I don't want to make this person feel bad, or other people feel bad, or because people were always like, oh, you're so lucky. And I hate that term. I'm like, I'm not lucky. I'm not lucky. They're like, oh, you're so lucky you survived. I'm like, F you. Like that was really what it's like. I censored myself there. I don't believe it's any of it is luck, right? I feel like it's what I've created, and I have a bigger purpose. I totally got sidelined. What was I talking about?
You were talking about dimming your light, the Marianne
Yes.
ones. Yeah.
So, and then I realized, and then a couple of crazy things happened. I was at an event sitting at a table for lunch with a group of people who were all like super successful business people. And I started shrinking in my chair and just feeling like quite inferior and quite like I'm the small potatoes sitting at this table as everybody's going around sharing. And then it gets to me and I'm just like, again, emotional because I'm still going through this whole process of figuring this stuff out. And all of a sudden the lights in the room got brighter. And everybody at the table was like, did you just see that? Like the timing was unbelievable.
Wow.
It was like craziness. And then shortly after that conversation with my coach, I got an email from one of my clients just from her email list. And the subject line was, are you dimming your light? It was just too much. I was like, okay, universe, I'm picking up what you're laying down for me. Like I'm getting all of the signs.
Yeah.
So I'm still stepping into that, right? Like there's still a part of me that is like, I am expressing myself. I think I'm not fully expressed yet. And that's okay. But it was so fascinating to kind of change my perception on that dimming my light and that shining brightly, that we fear shining brightly for fear of casting that shadow on others. That was my visual, that I was actually going to be shadowing other people. I had like this visual of a light or a lamp. And then I realized, no, I'm actually helping illuminate other people by shining bright. My light is creating light for others. It's like, that's who I am.
I love that.
Going back to your first question, who do I think I am? I am a light, a shining light for myself, because I also believe that I'm here. I deserve to have an amazing life while I'm here. So I don't believe in that serving to the detriment of myself. I've been there and I'm like, I'm here. I get to enjoy this journey and not sacrifice my own life and happiness for the sake of others. I get to be on that trip with them. So that's it. It's a mental shift. But I think that's what when I share my story, like when I shared my story, when I shared the photos of my scars, that photo shoot that we can share a link if you want to the podcast or the blog post I wrote about it, that was on my list this year. I was like, I want a photo shoot of my scars to capture that for the 25th anniversary. And I shared it because to me, it's like our scars make us who we are. We all have them, invisible, visible. And it's what they teach us about ourselves and what it allows us to teach others. And my scars, visible and invisible, have given me a great ability to teach and to share and to inspire others. And the number of messages I've received from people who have never felt comfortable in their own skin with their scars, who've never heard or seen anything like what I shared, who are like, for the first time, one woman said, for the first time in 25 years, I feel okay in who I am with my scars because you shared this. Like, that was so powerful. And that's why I continue to share things about that personal journey, because it matters. People need to hear that somebody else has experienced something like them, or that they can embrace their scars. They can be beautiful. And it's just how you feel about them.
Wow. That's pretty good. Yeah, I've got some of those too, but I won't share them right now.
Yes, I know.
So the word the word that you were saying there didn't come up. You didn't say it, but that's the word that kind of came to mind when you were talking about even being amongst people who you think they're like there and you're kind of down here somehow within certain contexts. You know, you meet them in a different context, you know, you're either level or, you know, you don't know. If you're just a person with a person, that's the way it kind of should be, is like you learn by just being with people. But this idea of shame, like this guilt and shame thing, that they're these kind of just garbage concepts that seem to just stick with the human condition, you know.
Yes.
And any opportunity you have to be able to look at that and go, at least question it, but preferably say, no, I don't have anything to be ashamed of. Like, feel the guilt when you do something you feel is wrong, but then move, like, don't hold on to it. Don't, it's those kinds of toxic, um, you know, abilities that we have to focus our energy and our worry and our imagination on something that, you know, by rights should be gone. Like it's like, it sure, it happened and now it's gone. I choose to release it, right? And that's, it's really important. And I think the other thing is like telling people it's okay to want things, to desire things based on who they are as a person, and ask the question of like, you know, what am I capable of? What are my capabilities? What am I potentially, you know, dot dot dot, what am I? And then just like have this you know, make the decision to just say, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to, you know, make a little change, or I'm going to make a big change, and it's just going to be a new version of me, you know, because we do change every day. We aren't the same from day to day or moment to moment even. And so I like that idea. And you said about the limitations we have with, you know, the mompreneur, I can't even say it,
Mompreneur.
mompreneur. Okay.
Yes.
It is a limiting thing. It's like, it's great in a certain idea, but then it naturally hits a limit. And then you're just like, well, people just move away from that. It's like, no, people are inspired by passion. So your idea of like dimming your light, when you're around someone who is singing or like speaking really well about something that they love, or, you know, it's in their art, or, you know, even they're talking about their business, if they really love what they're doing, that thing comes through. That's the message. And when you're around that, you're okay with it. I think people have this idea that they have to make other people's feelings okay, and it's like, no, you're really not responsible for other people's feelings. You can't be.
Yeah.
You really can't be. So
That's hard for a lot of people to accept, though. Like, we really feel like, I think that's it's a tough concept,
yeah,
really.
I mean, you know, especially when you're a parent or something, you're going to have this series of like exercises you go through, and these experiences with your children, because you want the best for them to come out. And sometimes you're going to hurt inside when you like hear them going through, you know, their limits they're going to burst out of and grow from. You can't be like just holding them all the time and like, you know, not like, you can't protect your kids all the time. You have to like release them into the world to do their thing, and they come back a little bruised, a little, you know, a little sad sometimes, and then they're amazing in a different way, you know, like they will inspire you, you know. And so I think, yeah, I love that idea. And the other thing about being the light thing is like, that word is amazing, because it's the word visually shining light, the spectrum of light we get from the sun, but there's the lightness too. Like when you
Yeah.
just think about being light spirited, being light hearted, just, you know, it's like you're releasing part of yourself, giving yourself permission to not be there, right? To just like
It's making it easy.
Let it all go, right?
Right? That lightness makes it easy. Somebody said to me the other day that, the work that I do is, it's easy to understand, I'm easy to work with, and it's easy to implement. It's just, I'm like, I was talking with my husband Philippe last night on a walk. I'm like, how do you sell that it's easy? Like, it just seems like such a stupid thing to say about working with me. And it's easy. It's fun. Like, it seems kind of trite, but I'm like, we undervalue how just making things like that lightness, like you said, that should be something we all thrive to offer in the work that we do and how we present ourselves, just for yourself and for others. So something you said, Glenn, sparked something I thought I would share. And it's really those old stories that we go back to, right? Those stories that people tell us, those comments, those little like, that you hold on to. Part of my dimming my light story comes from old stuff, but one story in particular, I remember I had been living abroad and I came home for probably Christmas, and I got together with a big group of people at a restaurant. And this is after my car accident. I used some of my settlement money to go and like blow it in Europe, essentially. That was my goal. I'm like, I don't want to come back with any money. That was sort of my I put most of it away, but I'm like, this chunk, this is for me to go and actually start living, because I hadn't for 2 years. So I met up with this group of people, and I remember sort of starting to share, people like, tell us about what you're doing in your life in Europe and blah, blah, blah. And at some point, one woman said, Lauren, nobody wants to hear what you've been doing. And it was this very cutting, like, ooh, okay. Does it sound like I'm bragging? Like, I'm like, this is my life. Like, I have a job that allows me to travel like every other week, and I'm going to see new places. Like, and then I was made to feel guilty for money I had received for a settlement from a car accident that I was blowing in Europe. I'm like, why am I made to feel small and like I can't share my life? Like, this is my life. Your life is your life. You've chosen this. And now I'm being made to feel bad because I'm going off and living, even after everything I've been through. That stayed with me for so long, because I've bit my tongue so many times, because I thought, oh, people don't want to hear about this. Is this me sharing too much? Am I going to sound like I'm bragging about, and those little things that people say over your life, even if you don't realize it, they can stay with you for a long time. Or I've left an event and thought, oh my God, did I share too much? Was I talking too much? Like, you start to have that conversation in your head around that, and you start to filter yourself. And that's when you start to become less authentic in how you show up.
I appreciate that. I even do that on this podcast. It's like, there's times when I'll go to the last thing. It's like, was I talking too much? Like, I feel like I was, but that thing you're talking about, it's, the other word I wrote down was worth. It's like, we have this thing of like, we're questioning our own worth. Does it have value in the outside world? That, and the thing is, like, we have to be okay with the idea that I'm worthy. I could not be more worthy. That's just the deal, because there's a saying, being is its own justification. Like, you talked about permission earlier. Sometimes people do need that incremental thumbs up, like, yeah, go for it, but this is like, when you have an opportunity to remind someone of that, like, whoever you are, you're amazing. Like, you may not see it, but you're amazing at something. And maybe I can help you figure it out part of that. And it's not anywhere near all of it, but like, please just, tell jokes, like whatever it is that releases that thing where people can go, oh, I actually feel good, and then they kind of put all that other stuff out of the way, like the shame, the guilt, the questioning, the the kind of community stuff they're trying to fit in with. It's like, no, like life, I don't want to say life's too short, but like, just choose other things. Just choose a different way of, opening the curtains in the morning and like, okay, let the light in and here we go.
All of those cliches are so true. Like they sound, like I used to say life is a journey, right? Life is a journey. It's not a destination, right? But it's like, so there's all these like analogies and that, that you can use, and they sound kind of cheesy, but they really are true.
Well, they're still
They
around
really are.
after all these years. So,
I know. I often say it's sort of like a roller coaster, right? So like there's ups, there's downs. Sometimes there's a lot of loops and corkscrews. Like sometimes it's a pretty violent roller coaster. Sometimes it's that smooth entry back into the starting place. But without, if life was always just a straight line, it'd be pretty boring. There wouldn't be any growth in that. There'd be no, we also wouldn't have any of the ups when we're feeling like amazing, right? So you kind of need the ups and the downs so that you like, it just makes life more interesting. Doesn't always make it easy or enjoyable, but it keeps things interesting.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So as you guys were talking, it was so great listening to you. And there were so many things that popped into my head when you were talking about light and worth and value and just now, the ups and the downs. And it made me think of a line in this book that we're studying in class, the Everything Answer book by Amit Goswami. And so there was this line about the purpose of being human that really just sort of like it hit me, because I just thought soul is used differently in our teaching than it is used, I guess, when sort of the average person might think of it. But for me, I love that word, and the soul for me, that's it. Even though, I use energy, I use universe, sometimes I'll say spirit, sometimes depending on company, I will say God, and consciousness. But soul to me, that's just the ultimate. And maybe it's because there's so much music in my background. I don't know, but it's just such a layered, beautiful, rich term that can be applied to this energy that is the essence of everyone and everything. And so in this book, and I'm just thinking, what is this chapter? He's talking about, it's basically in this book, it's kind of like a call to quantum activism. So instead of living from a materialistic worldview where everything comes from matter and everything, is rooted in matter, in stuff, then embrace a quantum worldview where everything is energy and everything comes from this domain of infinite potentiality. And we are always at choice, and we are always choosing whether we are conscious of it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, and that all of it is available and happening every single moment. So he asks here, what is the purpose of being human? In quantum science, we have discovered that purpose, which is to pursue, to explore, and to discover the soul. And so for me, I just think that that's kind of what we've been talking about today, which is that, there is this light, in you. There is this thing in you, this energy, this beautiful gift that is here to be offered to the world in only the way that you can. And when you allow that gift, that light to shine, and I love that the word light came up, because it's also so super layered that, Laura, like you said, it just not only does that light emit and radiate from you because that's who you are, but the light that you are then illuminates everyone and everything in its path, allowing for that radiation and that, emanation and that illumination for everyone and everything to come forward. And all of it, and I love, Glenn, that you brought this up too, is that it happens so easily and it's just so graceful, because that's what lightness, the lightness of being is all about. It reminds me of Reverend Laurie's thing of, her foundational belief of holding things lightly, never to hold on to, just hold on lightly, because then you're not like willing anything to happen. You're just, you're leaving room to allow, for stuff to flow. So I love this conversation today. This is so fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes me think. I've talked for years about the ripple effect. And I know that's not a light reference, it's more of a water reference, but I do have a deep connection with water, so that does resonate with me. But if I think about my car accident and the positive ripple effect of that event, it's still rippling.
Yep.
Right. And the work I do, to me, like, I use science language because of my company name, Lab Creative. I talk about creating brand chemistry. My book is called Brand Chemistry. And to me, it's like creating a chain reaction. So I create chemistry with my clients, and I help them create chemistry with their clients. Right. So it's the same kind of concept that I've been practicing for years. So if I think about that accident of mine, the drunk driver stopped drinking, and his daughters got their dad as a recovering alcoholic as opposed to an alcoholic. And, his wife stood by him. Like, all of that, the events in his life and his kids' life is super amazing and positive. I think about, I still get comments from like college friends who still will share my story with people who they're like, you've had too much to drink. And they're like, threatening to call the cops on them if they leave their house with their car, and like, they'll still tell me, like, I still share your story with people who I think need to hear it. My younger cousins, and how watching me recover, how it affected as they went into their adulthood and went to university and were making sure that none of their university friends were drinking and driving or doing drugs and driving, like that, just because they saw me recovering. Like, you see that. And I think about everything in my life too. We have so much ability to affect the lives of others.
Yeah.
And that could be positive or negative, right? We have the ability to have a profound impact on how other people show up by the way you show up and what you do with that life that you have. Alternatively, you could put out a lot of negative energy and do the same thing, but in the opposite direction. Just like for me, almost like that sliding doors reference, I often, when I spoke to high school students for 5 years about my experience through a program at a local hospital to try to help prevent youth sort of trauma and, bad choices like drinking and driving and drugs and driving, or doing stupid things to impress girls, which is something that would come up often. It was, that I could have just as easily become a drug addicted cripple as the woman that I am today. Right. It's for anybody going through any kind of experience. Maybe there's more than one, more than two ways to go, but, I was given a heck of a lot of drugs to use at my own discretion often. And, I could have spiraled into that dark place of like, anger and misery and that chip on my shoulder. And I chose to forgive. That took a long time and a lot of therapy, but I forgave because I didn't want to carry that weight around with me, right? I stopped taking the oxy that they were giving me because I didn't want to, at the end of the day, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a drug addict after everything I've been through. I'm also very pig-headed, and I'm like, nobody's going to tell me I can't do something. So you just watch me. And I'm going to prove you all wrong. And I did. Right. So part of it is I think we all have that in us. We just don't always believe it. Yeah. And so it's finding that and really going, I have the opportunity with this thing, no matter how crappy it is, to decide what I'm going to do with this. It's not always easy. And it's not always something you can do on your own. So I will share that I had a lot of support in my recovery. I still have people I go to. Like, life is a constant in a constant state of flux. And, it takes a village. Just like, they say that about raising kids. I think, especially when you've had something traumatic happening in your life, you need support. You need somebody to help you process that so you don't get stuck, right? We talked about getting stuck in those emotions. I went through all the emotions. I went through them all. But now on the other side, it's like, it's a thing that happened and I can separate myself from that thing. And I know that it gave me something really amazing.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Oh, such a great conversation. And I'm thinking somewhere in the back of Glenn's head, he's like, and she's not a minister. Most of our guests have
Do I sound too preachy?
So I'm looking at the time, and I think we've probably gone about an hour and a half. So this is probably a really good, positive, just fantastic place to stop. So before we finish up, there's our next segment, just to lighten things up, which is what we say, even though they're not really heavy or anything right now anyway. But
we covered a lot of topics. So
it's our rapid fire question round, which we're still holding in consciousness that there's a better name for it. But for right now, it's the rapid fire question round, where you will have 1 minute. Glenn is going to ask you as many questions as he can. You just answer them off the top of your head, no deep thought or anything required. And I actually brought a timer today. But the last time we recorded, I mean, usually I'm really good at like, okay, minutes up, done. But last time I was just sitting there, we had our teacher on, and I was so mesmerized by the answers he was giving. I'm like listening. I'm like, oh, wait, stop. It's been like 2 minutes almost. But anyway, okay, so I'm ready to go. Honey Bunch, are you ready to go?
Yes.
Yes. All prepared? Questions, prize, everything?
Yeah.
Prize. Okay, so on your mark, get set, and go.
Hey, Laura, do you sing in the shower?
No.
How many tattoos do you have?
1.
Your favorite city to visit?
Ooh, Copenhagen.
Do you prefer swimming or skiing?
Swimming.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Kindness or compassion?
Kindness.
Bicycles or cars?
Bicycles.
Music or books?
Music.
Appetizer or dessert?
Dessert.
Walking on the beach or in the forest?
Beach.
Wine or brandy?
Wine.
Cher or Lady Gaga?
Lady Gaga.
Sean Connery or all the other Bonds put together?
Sean Connery.
Yay!
We end with Sean Connery. May he rest in peace.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's right. Glenn, tell Laura what she's won.
I won.
All right. Here is from the book Healing Words, 101 Words for the Body, Mind, and Spirit. Words to Inspire and Affirm by Karen with a C Goldman. So the book, I just did random today, and funnily enough, the word came up, darkness.
Wow, that's not random.
No.
No.
It's just a couple of quotes I'm going to read. I'm not going to read the main article, just the quotes. Darkness, lacking or having very little light. So Theodore Rothke says, in a dark time, the eye begins to see. Lee Salk says, when it gets dark enough, you can see the stars. I've heard that one before. And Helen Keller, I can see, and that is why I can be happy. In what you call the dark, but which to me is golden, I can see a God-made world, not a man-made world. And then the final one is a better Chinese proverb, better to light one small candle than to curse the darkness.
Ooh,
I like that one.
very appropriate for our conversation.
I usually ask a question, you know, like pick a number between 2 and however many pages the book has, and then you pick, but I just went like this, and that's what I came up with today. So
It was meant to be.
there you go.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So before
Amazing.
we go, Laura, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do so?
They can follow us on social media. Lab Creative Inc. is our handle on all the channels. You can connect with me on LinkedIn under Laura Beauparlant. Our website is labcreative.ca. Yeah, my book is available on Amazon, although I'm going to be selling it directly coming up soon. So all that juicy information is on our website.
All right, fantastic. We're going to have a slide put up so that people can see it for those people who are watching, and otherwise for everybody listening, then you've just said what they needed to hear. And then on YouTube, once this is posted on the YouTube channel, then all of that will be in the description as well. So Laura, thank you for being our guest today. It's just so fun to catch up with you whenever we get together, which is not often enough. So thank you for giving us, almost 2 hours of your time today. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was
been so fun.
Illuminating. Thank you. Glenn, anything you want to say as a goodbye?
No, just my love to the family, and it was really great just sharing with you and listening to you and being reminded of your brilliance and your talents and your lovely energy. It's really
Thanks,
nice to
Glenn.
see.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you both. Thank you for inviting me on here. It was a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. All right. So thank you everyone who watched. Thank you everyone who listened. Thank you for everyone who tuned in to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Thank you to Laura Beauparlant from Lab Creative for being our guest today. Thank you to Glenn Mahoney, who is my co-host in life, for co-hosting today. Thank you for everything. We will be back with another episode of Who Do You Think You Are soon. Okay. Bye for now. This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Cahoot, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Laura Beauparlant. Music, Vasco Lourenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, sakkmesterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiacahoot.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?